And this is a special episode. We are actually syndicating this in podcast on Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, Serial Entrepreneur Secrets Revealed. If you do not already know this, we actually do run another show other than uh, Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. We run the Complete Entrepreneur every Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern. And today we're talking about wealth versus health, and maybe good timing because I'm actually just getting over a cold. Michael Gilmore is our host. Thank you, Michael. You're coming from Australia. I'm really looking forward to talking about wealth versus health. And is there a trade off? And should we be thinking about that trade off in our entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, Colin, it's great to be back here. That's for sure. Yeah, it's we had a bit of a break there with the Complete Entrepreneur. We're back on deck, and it's wonderful to have people as they come and join the room. And as we take a look at this really exciting topic and an interesting topic, Colin, which is wealth versus health, and it's a trade-off that I think many entrepreneurs make. And I'm sorry to hear, Colin, that you're just getting over a cold. That's for sure. Let's
Just
hopefully you're being a bit more getting a bit more healthy. That's for sure.
I am, and you got to take care of yourself. You have to learn to take those times off and rebalance your life, and don't let your business overwhelm uh, yourself and even affect your health. I've got some stories we'll talk about in a few minutes, Michael, but I think it's an interesting topic that entrepreneurs don't often face. We always talk about what's the next hack we can do to make the $1 million in a weekend, or what is it that we're going to do now that is going to get us the next deal. And we don't think about, is there a balance between health and wealth, and how do we actually apply that too? We can actually sit there and say, yeah, we think there's a balance, but what do we actually do? Like, how do we actually put that balance into place?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest challenges I think for an entrepreneur is that you're working like I don't know about you, Colin, but I work long hours. Okay, 12, 14 hour days is regular during the week. And how do you still maintain a healthy lifestyle during the frenetic pace of your businesses and things like that? And when your businesses can become all consuming and you're sort of thinking to yourself, yeah, I know I'm supposed to do some exercise. Oh, I know that that pizza looks great because it's just there versus eating something healthy. I know that I need to set some time aside for my mental well-being as well. I know I've got to do all those things, but you know what? I've got a board meeting coming up. I've got an issue with a supplier. I've got a major customer threatening to leave. I got problems with staff, and I've got to make sure I meet payroll next week. All those sort of things come and impinge on us, and we're essentially. I view it like this: is that if we had our own trust account, and we've been depositing in our trust account for year after year, and then you start a business, and many of us start withdrawing from our trust account or our health account as such, withdrawing. And what happens when you take that little bit more out of your health account and it goes into a negative situation? Do you end up in the ER? Do you end up with some chronic illness or and things like that? So, how do we balance all these things out? Is really the topic for today's conversation, and I think it's going to be one, Colin, where we're going to have a great time. But we're only going to have a great time though if we have people from the audience there come up on the stage. So, if you're thinking to yourself, "Gee, boy, have I got a story to tell you guys," to share with everyone here, then please put your hand up. And we would love to have you up on stage here with us. So it's not just Colin and I talking, but it's also you, the members of this great community here at Startup Club. But anyway, you're listening to The Complete Entrepreneur, and it's a show that's at 5 p.m. Eastern Time each and every Thursday. And today's topic is looking at health or wealth versus health. So, Colin, you have some stories to tell about your situations in life.
Yeah, and I'm just going to read a little section from the book here. Those of you who have listened to this podcast or who have, here on Clubhouse, know that we published a book last October 3rd called Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. It's become a number one bestseller in 13 categories on Amazon. Even today, I was looking at it, and the Audible is number 9 for its category in entrepreneurship. And it's done extremely well. We talk about the toll of the entrepreneur. So, Michael, if you'll just bear with me for a minute, I just want to read this very briefly. And I see Jaffe we have in the audience there as well. We'd really like to do a reading on your show, Jaffe, as well. But every month I meet with 7 other individuals and share my personal family and even my the business with these 7 individuals through an organization called EO. And in 2017, my forum confronted me about my life. See, at that time, I was very successful, but I was also a workaholic. My entire identity was based on my companies, and I was ignoring other aspects of my life and other areas of my life. Now, thankfully, my family stuck through the challenges and continued to support me, but I had to let my health, I had let my health deteriorate. I traveled way too much. I did drink a little too much wine to numb the stress, those meetings and the anxiety and continue to work day and night on my businesses. Look, even if you're in startup mode, it's worth it while to connect yourself with some type of community. Okay, we've talked about joining an incubator to help your business to get started, to connect with the community. There are a lot of communities out there, even on Clubhouse. I think that this is a community, and connecting with a community like Clubhouse and sharing and talking about the challenges that you have and getting help from others is so important and so critical. And that's what happened to me in 2017. And it really was a life-changing moment for me. And at that point, I re-engineered my companies. I stepped back. I no longer did the 60, 70 hours a week. I no longer acted as CEO. I just became, sort of the chairman and investor. I delegated responsibilities and not tasks. And I know we've talked a lot about this concept, Michael, but let me be clear here. Delegating responsibilities and not tasks, not just tasks, is good. Well, we get the dog going here, but uh, is good not only from an economic perspective, it helps you acquire more wealth and expand the number of businesses or projects that you're working on, but it does something magical. It releases the stress that you have associated with every complexity in your life. My wife owns a school and she has 16 teachers and almost 90 students. And she just has not gotten this concept. She delegates tasks, not responsibilities. And so every night at 3 o'clock in the morning, she's thinking about different aspects of her business and all of the challenges she has to deal with. See, we entrepreneurs, we don't go home, we don't have 9 to 5. We go home at 5 o'clock. And at 5 o'clock, we start to think about tomorrow, or we start to think about, or we're still thinking about today. And we're trying to figure out what it is that we need to do or solve, and these problems don't stop. It don't stop at 8 o'clock. It doesn't stop at 11 p.m. It doesn't stop at 1 p.m. At 3 a.m. Sorry, 1 a.m. At 3 a.m. we're back on it again after maybe sleeping for a few hours from exhaustion. And that's because we're responsible for every aspect of our business, every aspect of our success. And if there's a way that we can release that stress, the tension, and find others and learn to trust in others to help us build our companies, it can be magical because running a business is not a job. It's a 24-hour mind cycle that we have to learn how to deal with. And yes, we can check it And there are times, when, and don't get me wrong, I'm not 100% there yet. I'm still striving to find better balance in my life. But if we can put that in check and we can get others to take on responsibilities, then then we won't be the ones at 3 a.m. thinking about all of the stress and all of the issues that we have in our company. And that can change your health. Michael, I know we've probably got a lot of other ideas, and I know you're in the audience. You've found ways to deal with the complexities of your business, the stress, and how it's impacted your health. We'd love to hear from you if you have a story of how your business impacted your health, or if you just have a thought and you want to come on stage and talk about it. Michael, I know you've got some stories as well, so I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing what you had to say there, Colin. The whole concept of assigning responsibilities, not tasks, is quite difficult for a lot of entrepreneurs because they say to themselves, "But I can do this better," or you end up micromanaging people in that process by assigning tasks, and then you've got to go along, remember what they're doing, and all that sort of stuff. And so you're not only remembering what you've got to do with all your lists, you then have everyone else's list as well, and it'll drive you absolutely crazy. And I think the thing that goes hand in hand with assigning responsibilities is how do you keep the person you've assigned the responsibility to accountable for that responsibility? But that they go along and they end up reporting to you or to their team leader or whatever. And I think that's really one of the challenges where as your business grows as an entrepreneur, if you do not release control to others, and I'll say this again, if you do not release control to others, you will absolutely kill yourself from stress. You will kill yourself from stress because you're trying to essentially do everything, and other people are just arms and legs, and it just doesn't work. For instance, I took over. I had a business partner of 17 years, and I bought him out earlier this year in one of my businesses. And one of the first things I ended up doing was I worked out ways to empower the team. So the first thing I did was I got a credit card for two of the main guys in the team, and I said, "Here's the credit card. I trust you. Do the right thing by the credit card." And so they were then empowered to actually spend money in the business. And that's the first thing I did. So there's no point in signing a responsibility column if you then don't give the person the ability to follow through on that the responsibility. So let's imagine you say, "I'm assigning responsibilities, but every single financial decision has to come back to you." That's ridiculous. You haven't assigned anything. All you've done is just you've hamstrung that person, a particular person in your company, because they've got to come back to you like Oliver, cap in hand, and so I said, "Please, sir, can I have some money to be able to do my responsibility? Can I please have some?" Yeah, they're like that, and so you're strangling your own company, and you're strangling your team from being able to execute on the responsibility you've assigned them. So that's the first thing I did was the
Hey,
second thing I
Michael,
had to, yeah,
can I come at you a little bit here?
yeah, sure,
Sort of like so rip off the band-aid a bit.
yeah,
One of the things I've gotten to know you over the years, and I don't want to speak, I don't want to say things that, obviously you're not comfortable with talking about. But, one of the things that can cause a lot of stress or health issues, I believe, is who you surround yourself with
yeah,
and the positivity versus the negativity. And years ago, you go back years ago in my publicly traded company in 2000s, I had a business partner who I had to fire. He was the chairman of the board too, and it was very, very tough. But we spent years, probably 10 years, just constantly fighting this individual and the negative. And I used to say at the time, it takes 10 times as much energy to deal with negative issues as it does positive issues. Whether in your business, if you're in your business and you've got people who are or you're just starting a business and you have people around you who are just very negative or don't believe in you or for whatever reason, these things can have an emotional strain, which ultimately lead to health issues too. We haven't even got talking about that. We're talking more, I guess, more about the mental health issues, but we haven't talked about how they can lead to physical health issues, weight gain, heart issues, blood pressure, all those kind of things that can come along with that. But Michael, you were very stressed out. You were in a bad state about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, because of the people who you were surrounded with, and you managed to get out of that. So I don't know if you can share a little bit more about that story and how far you can go with that, but I'm certain we'd all like to hear a bit more.
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting story, Colin, and thank you for asking. Um, how can I? Where do I start? Yeah, I think the thing that happens when you have an equal partnership, for those of you in the audience there who've got equal partnerships, the thing that happens when you have an equal partnership is the person who's prepared to say no is actually in the superior position. And so you think about it. Do you want to go along and tackle a new market or something like that? Or the answer is no. We need to tackle a new market? No, you can't do that. We need to release a new product? No. We need to put on additional staff? No. We need to go along, raise some capital? No. So that person is actually in the driver's seat. And the problem is, though, for the entrepreneur, typically when you have a partnership, one person will be very likely the operations person. They normally say no. And the entrepreneur who is wanting to go along, move forward with a yes, ends up unbelievably frustrated and stressed as they watch one opportunity after another, after another, after another slip through the hands of the business because the operations person is saying no. So there I was traveling along in the company, and I'm receiving essentially a no continuously, and then getting micromanaged, and so it became incredibly difficult. Incredibly difficult situation and very, very frustrating to the point where I'd be waking up. I have a stress barometer, and my stress barometer is if I'm not under stress, I sleep the whole night through. But if I'm under stress, I'm waking up every hour to 2 hours. I'm constantly waking up at night, and I always know when I'm under stress if I'm waking up. And I was in the end, I was at the point where I had night after night after night where I wasn't getting a proper sleep, and the pressure that was put on me was quite extreme. It got to the point where it was actually only, Colin, it was only about May last year, where I had a board meeting and I said to my business partner, I just can't go on like this. We're at loggerheads. And I looked, he was quite a bit older than me. I looked at it this way. He had his foot in the brake, I had my foot in the accelerator, and the car was just spinning its wheels. And it was a really, really difficult and intense situation. And I said to him, uh, "You can have a choice. Basically, either I go, or you take 3 months off, and full pay and all that sort of stuff, and just get your head back into the game, and we'll have a conversation when you come back." And so he took 3 months off, and in that space, that 3 months, I began to sort of work away at the business and change a whole lot of things and all that sort of stuff. And I began to get back in a good place. And I thought, oh, this is great. And then he came back, and it went into the same old within about a week. And the pressure once again and the stress was began to manifest itself. So once again, I wasn't sleeping again, and it was a very, very difficult situation. At the same time, had another member of the executive team who just wasn't performing. I was having to deal with that. um, and having to deal with different members of the staff who weren't doing what they need to be doing, delivering on a new product and things like that. And it was, Colin, it was very, very difficult. So went out for lunch with my business partner. I thought I've just got to address these issues and say, I've got to try to sort my way through this. Now, you need to understand, this is a guy I've worked with and struggled with, for that matter, for a long time. Yeah, so it's like this is by then it was like 16 years or so. And for those of you who have business partners, you could probably relate to this story. Anyway, so we're having lunch together, and across the lunch, he said, "Well, you can always buy me out." And they're the words I wanted to hear. I had no idea how I was going to buy him out, and I had no idea how I could possibly execute upon this and all that sort of stuff. And so in the middle of this conversation, it actually began to get heated again. And he said, "Well, you can always buy me out. Yeah, this is in the middle of a restaurant." And I went silent for about like probably 30 seconds, which is a long time in a conversation when you're looking across at another person. Because it's what I wanted to hear, but it was just it staggered me that he'd say that. Finally, I said to him, "Look, that's something I can think about. Let me go away and really contemplate this." I was 2 days after that event. I had my daughter's wedding, and the day after my daughter's wedding, I was heading to Germany for a client trip and that sort of stuff. And I said, I just need to hit my head in the right spot and really think about this. So three-quarters of the way through the trip, Colin, I sent my business partner an email and said, "Look, I think we need to pursue this, that I will buy you out, under one condition, is that I need to get an arbitrator between us. So so we have all communication go through this intermediary that regarding the sort of the buyout and all that sort of stuff." And I said the reason why is because I don't want the emotional angst, because I'm actually trying to maintain a relationship with my business partner. And so I get back, and we begin the process, and finally, and I actually ended up taking a week's vacation where it all came to a head, and spent the first half of the vacation um, negotiating on the term sheet and all that sort of thing. And I must admit that was I didn't get much sleep during that week, that's for sure. The first half of it.
Yeah, and Michael,
Uh,
I do want. I
yeah.
don't want. I feel like I'm telling the host to not take the topic offline about closing deals. But I understand where you're going with this, because first of all, you had the stress of the whole stress and impact on your health from having this bad relationship. It's like a relationship, even a non-business relationship, and then now you've got to close the deal, and you've got the intensity, and it's all happening. And I just want you to talk a little bit also about how do you, like, mentally and physically, how did you protect yourself from the negative health consequences associated with this situation?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. For those of you who've gone through a situation like this, you'd appreciate this. You actually don't fully comprehend the toll it takes on you until you get to the other side. And you think you're handling it. You really do. And then you get to the other side, you suddenly think, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize what it was like to be in the sunshine again," versus like in the storm clouds. And it was, how did I protect myself? My wife was my anchor during this process, and I would have conversations with her, and we would talk our way through things. And she was like, if you think of it as a pressure cooker, she was like the pressure release valve, and she was amazing. Colin, during that period of time, I talked to you as well, And that was actually incredibly important, those sort of times. So I would really recommend to all entrepreneurs, have someone or someones you can really spend some time with and talk with, and be very open about the way you're feeling. Be very open about uh, just some of the angst and some of the pain you're going through in that process. Like, let me tell you, when you have a situation like I had with a business partner I worked with for quite some time, there is a lot of pain in there. There is an enormous amount of pain, and things get said from both sides, which are incredibly hurtful in that process. Even though you've got an intermediary, yeah, it doesn't make it helps shield a bit. But let me tell you, there are some incredibly hurtful things that can get said, and yeah, it's yeah, it was really it was incredibly difficult. Yeah, so the thing is though is that I finally got to the end, and of the process, and everything got signed. Yeah, the term sheet and all that sort of stuff. So I effectively had pseudo control. Then it's got to go to the lawyers and everything like that. By the way, if you think the first round of negotiations is, gee, I've sold the business or I bought the business or whatever it is, and you think, oh, gee, it's all being done now. That's great. And you got your 1.5 page, 2 page term sheet and that sort of stuff. If you think that's it, then you really haven't been through this process. You really haven't, because close to that, you go through a process which will end up involving 100 and something page legal document with section 10.4.1.c is a gotcha. And there's all these things, and there's just that just grinds out another month or two if you're lucky. Yeah, so it's yeah, so that
Yeah,
became
I'm pulling in the hook again, right? Because I'm trying to keep us on track here, Michael, to talk
yeah.
about that conflict between health and wealth. Can I take us
Ah,
in a
yeah.
little bit of a different direction here? So
Let
this,
me tell you, with the health
I'll
during
finish
this
up though.
time,
Yeah, yeah.
the health in this time went down the tubes for me. It really did. Um, it was, I was hardly sleeping, and yeah, I'd be taking cat naps constantly during the day and all that sort of stuff, just to try to get my brain back together. And you're in an intense negotiation, and you're not at your peak self. And it's the most critical time, and it was it was it was incredibly tough. There's one thing I will say. My accountant reached out to me. Actually, the company's accountant. We have an outsourced CFO, and he knew it was happening and all that sort of stuff. He had to be across there, and he asked me something really important. He didn't say, "So how's negotiations going?" and everything like that. He said, "Michael, how are you going?" And then he said, "It's pretty grueling, isn't it?" And I must admit, like, it was just to hear that, um, was it was almost like a lifeline. And as entrepreneurs, we need those lifelines. We really do during these intense times. I'm talking about an intense time I had where I'm buying my business partner out. But we all have different intense times, and in those lifelines is it saves us. It really does. I must admit that after I went through the first, like, the term sheet and all that sort of stuff, and I bought a nice gift for him, and I said, "You wouldn't believe what that 2-minute conversation did for me, and I just want to thank you for that." So those people that provide those lifelines to you, it actually costs them as well to do that. Um, when you finally get through whatever you're going through, you get through it all. One of the best things you can do for them and also for you is to thank them, and really thank them. Thank them when you're in the clear skies, not in the middle of the storm. In the middle of the storm, you will not have the capacity really to thank them in the way you need to. But thank them when you get into the clear skies. So, Colin, you want to bring this back
Yeah,
on topic.
so
I'm
Michael,
sort of, as I share this story, I'm reliving it in my head.
I know, and you know what? I asked this of a really cool complete entrepreneur episode called, The Art of the Negotiation. Because
Oh,
there's
yeah,
a lot of
I've just
human
touched on that.
elements. Yeah, there's a lot
Yeah.
of human elements, and I think you're sort of you're putting that in place. And maybe we could run with that, if not next week or the week after, because I think there's a lot of aspects of negotiation. There are more than just the T and C's, more than just an
Oh, yeah.
AI coming up with a red line. We're talking about a lot of emotional and tricks and techniques that you can use. Let me just reset the room. We're talking about health versus wealth. You may be listening to this in podcast on Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, Serial Entrepreneur Secrets Revealed. And we do this podcast every Friday at 2 o'clock Eastern. But sometimes we also throw in a complete entrepreneur show on this podcast network because, entrepreneurship is more than just a simple code. It's more than just trying to figure out what it is you need to do to succeed or what are the hacks or growth hacks. It's also about the human side. And so we try to tackle issues like that. And we do this show, by the way, every Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern. We try to do it every week. There's the odd week that we're off. We were on vacation for a couple of weeks here, but we are back. And this is a show that really gets in deep. Michael, let me take it a little bit of a different direction. Um, I'm thinking back to when I was graduating from college, went to work on the farm, and we had a stand in front of our farm, and we did grow strawberries, but we didn't have enough to really support the market at the time because we were primarily raspberry farmers. And we went up to another neighboring farm, and myself, my mother, and a couple other people, and we started to pick these strawberries. And it was tough work. If you've ever picked strawberries, so they're pretty low down. Raspberries are a little bit higher up, but strawberries you got to go on your knees, basically in your hands, and you're picking them. And you can fill a pint of strawberries with a good bush, a good time of year, probably in about 2 or 3 minutes. And you sell that pint for about $3 a pint or whatever. And you can start to see like pretty quick. So we started to do this. We sent the flats over to the stand on our farm, and you could see a sea of red lights slamming on their brakes on this street in east of Toronto called Bailey and Pickering. It was actually with Ajax, whatever Ajax going into Whitby, but you could see a, tons of cars slamming on their brakes. It was selling strawberries in the summer, and we laid them all out, and you just car after car pulled over, and they started buying these things like mad. So I'm like, young and stupid and whatever. I'm like, holy shit, we got to keep feeding this market. So and we couldn't find enough people. It was too late to get people. So I'm like, okay, mom, like let's just go back to like let's get some more strawberries. So we went on the farm, and there's like three or four of us, and we worked for 18 hours. Our knees were bloodied, and this lasted for about 2 weeks. Season in Toronto is about 2 weeks for strawberries. The knees were bloodied. It was, I mean, like this is all we were trying to do is make more money, and we're definitely sacrificing our health in the short term. Now, do I think it was a healthy thing to do? Absolutely. You're young. You do what you do when you need to make money, and but I'm trying to use this sort of as an analogy in life. You know, you have the opportunity to go do another sale or make another 20 phone calls, but you know what? Maybe you have to give up that time that you would normally spend to go to the gym or Maybe you have to, instead of making the meal, let's just order Uber Eats and let's work for an extra 45 minutes. Let's bring in the extra dollars. And, but let's sacrifice. Health always seems to be second to making money. And that's been part and parcel of the way that I've evolved. And I've identified that, and others have pointed that out to me, like I mentioned earlier in 2017, when it was sort of like I can't what do you call it, takeover. It was like a awakening, and it was something that really did change me in my life. But is there a balance there? Have you been, do you think there's an opportunity to just keep making money and forget the health? Because if you got a lot of money, you can take care of your health down the road when you're older, Michael. You don't need your health when you're young. What do you think?
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
And I'm being facetious, of course. There's I'm
Yeah,
actually I'm hoping you're
of
going to
course
challenge
you're right.
that.
Yeah, I think it's one of the classic things. You can break the rules for some of the time. You can't break the rules all the time. Eventually, you will pay the piper. So, in the case of my story of negotiating with my business partner or with you, like picking strawberries, and that sort of stuff, you can break the rules for a time. But what eventually happens is your body just says, "My turn." Um, and I'll never forget. By the way, your mind as entrepreneurs is amazingly powerful, incredibly powerful. I'll tell you a quick story about this. I remember I was at a conference and I wasn't feeling too good at the conference and ended up jumping on the plane, heading back home. And suddenly it hit me. I picked up some sort of bug, and my flight home is not like an hour. It's more like 70 hours. It's like 24 hours door to door. And I remember being on that flight and I thought, oh my gosh, I think I'm going to die. But my brain kept my body together. And I got finally got home, stepped through the door, and my wife looked at me, and I looked at her, and my son was there. He was a bit older, and and I began passing out. My eyes rolled back in my head, and I began passing out. And it was my body said, "You're home. It's now my turn." That's essentially what it said. And it was and it was quite an eye-opening experience. In fact, my wife was about to call the ambulance and everything like that. Like, what the heck is happening here? And finally, I came to again and everything. But it was funny, as I went through this whole passing out process. I thought to myself, "You're just a fake. You're just a fake. Come on." But I couldn't like you're not passing out, really. And yet I could do nothing about it. My body just took over. And it was a real lesson to me. And the lesson was this. This is way before the days of COVID and all that sort of stuff. This is 20 years ago or something like that. And it was a real lesson to me where your mind as an entrepreneur can have you focused and you could just overcome all like just about all the limitations of your body. You can go without sleep for 24 hours easy, like not a problem. And you can just go, 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 go. But at some stage, your body's going to say, enough's enough. At some stage. So you could be going along, it's like death by a thousand cuts to your body and not eat the right food, not go along and exercise, not have some time out of just to refresh yourself, all that sort of stuff. And you could keep on pushing through. But every time you do, it's like another cut. It's another cut. And at some point in time, your body will go along and say, enough's enough. It's now my turn. And you'll end up in hospital or you'll be sick or something like that. In my case, I found out later that the conference, like three-quarters of the conference, ended up catching some horrible bug and the CDC got involved and all sorts of weird and wonderful things. But yeah, but it was a real eye-opener for me, Colin, that as entrepreneurs, we're unbelievably tough mentally. Typical entrepreneurs are really tough, and you can push through things. My advice to you is don't. Don't do that. Um, and just even the back end of the story with me buying my business partner out and all that sort of stuff, and I can go through the whole negotiation thing in another show. Um, finally, everything it gets signed, and I then got to make a whole series of decisions pretty fast because now the business is in your control. So you actually need to, typically speak, when you buy a company, by the way, you end up cleaning out a lot of the dead wood, lowering expenses to extend the runway, so you can then go ahead and then build a more solid ground and that sort of stuff. But you're not in the best mental state to do that. You really aren't. And it's a tough one, Colin, in those circumstances. And so what I ended up doing was I actually formulated my plan even before the buyout, sort of negotiations had started. So I knew what I needed to do before I actually took control of it. I knew exactly what I had to do. And so it was just executing on something I'd already clearly thought about. But yeah, so it's like I said, you can break the rules some of the time when it comes to your health, but you cannot break the rules all of the time. As entrepreneurs, we're really good at breaking rules. In fact, we disrupt industries. We change things. And but eventually, if you're breaking the rules with your life and your lifestyle, you're going to run into real problems, and you need to think about that in a very serious way. Yeah,
Hey,
but
Michael,
anyway, so yeah,
I got a fucked up idea. You want to
yeah,
hear it?
sure,
Okay, this is diabolical by its worst nature. Okay, uh, so in my mind, I'm like wealth versus health, and about 3 years ago, I started doing CrossFit. I do it 3 times a week. I actually take time out of work and I prioritize CrossFit. I've been focused on getting healthy because the theory is that if I spend a little bit of time on that, I can live longer and make more wealth. I told you it's fucked up. I'm only doing it to make more wealth. Isn't that weird? Like just mentally. And I know that might be something I just say to myself. Of course, your health is the most important thing. You got to enjoy life and whatnot. But I actually believe if you balance your life and actually focus on your health, you can actually make more money because you're going to live long.
yeah. I completely agree with you on that. But it's also I had a conversation with a good friend of mine one time. He said, um, when you really begin to look at your health and put that as a priority in your life, you become more potent in the time that you allocate to work. And that word potent is an interesting one. In other words, you become so much more effective in your work because you are healthy, versus if you're dragging yourself through the day, and you're forcing yourself, you'll end up thrashing and not achieving all the things you want to achieve during the day. And that to me really spoke to me. Like I used to work typically till about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I would do that night after night and night. By the way, I'd work like that for 5 days a week. On the weekends, I never work. I don't work on the weekends. If I have to work on the weekend, it means a disaster has completely happened. And if you've got disasters happening all the time, you've got to change the way you do business. So during the week, I work flat. And so after the conversation with him, I completely changed my lifestyle, where I I go to bed now at if it's 10 o'clock at night, it's late for me. It really is. And I go to bed around 9:30, 10 o'clock or something like that. But I get up early. Like I'm up at 5:30, 6 o'clock. That sort of time frame, Colin. And I find I'm much more potent. And in those early hours, I'm able to get my work done before my schedule gets demolished by all the things of the day. I get my work done, and this actually I find that actually works really well. And the other thing I ended up doing was, and I've done this for well over a decade now, the first thing I do every morning is I call it input into myself. I sit down and I read a book for half an hour. I may meditate. I may just sit on the couch or on my favorite spot or something like that, and I just think. I also do some exercise and that sort of stuff. Um,
Yeah,
and I
my
input
favorite,
into myself.
Michael. My favorite is when I get home from work, I go in the hot tub
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
I transition
You
from this.
convinced me I need to put a hot tub in, I'll tell you.
Oh yeah, because I transition from this sort of like, I'm not saying evil. I don't think I'm an evil person at work. I'm just more like a very tough like general who's like commanding orders and you know and very staccato like personality
Never,
to
never.
going in the hot tub and calming down, relaxing. It changes my state of mind. Um, and then I'm better able to interact with the family as well. But I think it has some. I really believe there's a physical benefit to somehow transitioning your mind from that work environment to this non-work environment, and
Yeah,
because your
you got
body
to do
needs
that.
that,
Yeah.
right? And then I'm easier. Then I can start watching sci-fi and things like that, and connecting into other things like play with my dogs and talk to my kids and all that stuff. Whereas if I don't make a transitional point in my day, I end up I'm still on the computer. I'm still doing my email at 6:30 at night or 7 o'clock, and 9 o'clock hits, and I'm doing some contract or you sort of have to recognize that it's in our nature to want to make more money all the time. It's in our nature to want to work harder all the time. It's in our nature to win. But what we're talking about here is you can win, you can live longer. I like your idea, Michael. You can actually be more effective because you have taken care of your health. And it is, it's something that it's a work in progress for me. I'm telling you,
Yeah,
I'm not there yet.
I think, Colin, the thing is though, is that an entrepreneur's work will never finish. It never finishes. Just understand that it never finishes. And by the way, if you get there to the day and say, I've finished all my work, you will create some more work because that's who you are. All right. So understand that it will never ever finish. So sometimes you need to get to the end of your day, just say, well, I'm just not going to do anymore. That's tomorrow's problem. Oh, but I can't. I've got to do blah, blah, blah. Yeah. No, just decide you're not going to do anymore. Yeah. And and so many of us convince ourselves that once we get our inbox empty, then you'll be able to relax for the evening. Your inbox will never be empty. By the way, the best feature of every mobile phone, you take a look at your cell phone, the best feature of a cell phone is the off switch. That's the best feature. They should document that. They should put that on a huge billboard that says, and comes with an off switch.
I know. Do not disturb is pretty cool too.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. So for instance, I went out with my wife last night. We went and saw a movie. And we have this thing called Gold Class here, where they really treat you, bring food to you, and all that sort of stuff as you watch the movie. And I got a phone call as I'm sitting in the lounge before you go to the movie theater, and I looked at it and I just went, "Do not disturb under any circumstance. This is my time with my wife. We're going to have a good time tonight." And you know what? That person sent me, I don't know, 5 different text messages then and all that sort of stuff. And I still haven't replied to them. I don't have to reply to things straight away. In this world, you've got this device here, and we're all on it right now. And we think we need to reply to people straight away or something like that. Because if I reply to them, it's off to my list. No, just don't. They're going to survive. Just don't reply to them. You know what? That time with your kids is far more important than you sitting there taking that. Hopefully, your kids don't see you as you just quickly text the reply back. No, be with your kids. Be with them. So there's times like on the weekend, I've become notorious for this. I just don't reply to anything on the weekend. Unless it's an absolute disaster, and if you got disasters every weekend, like I said, you got a real problem in your business. But just manage that. The biggest stress I think in an entrepreneur's life nowadays is the fact that you've got a cell phone. That is the biggest stress. It is a wonderful servant, a very bad master. The fact that anyone can get you at any time. You'll get customers which will go around their account manager and all that sort of stuff, and they'll try to come directly to you. You'll get partners that which will go around your say COO and they'll come directly to you. You'll get all sorts of people try to get to you. Why? Because they can just call the CEO of the company. They can just text them. They can email them. They can do whatever, and you end up with a life which is just responding knee jerk. And even if it's like you got to talk to your account manager, you still have to respond to them and all that sort of stuff. No, just rack them up, deal with them in 15 minutes all at once, and but you don't have to reply to them. I'll give a classic example, Colin. We got a major client in my business, and one of the things that he was very demanding all the time, incredibly demanding, and he knew he was a big fish and all that sort of stuff, and he acted like one. So I made it my mission across a 6 month period to not reply to him when he messaged me. I wanted to reply, but I just forced myself not to. And I replied in my time. I replied 2 days later, a day later. Why? I began to educate him that even if you're a big fish, you know what? You don't trump other things, don't trump everything in my life. There's other things which are more important, even the big fish. And now I've got the best relationship ever. He understands that, and completely. And I was upfront with him, said, "Yeah, there's other things." So I was with my wife or something, or with my kids or whatever, and or I don't have to give an excuse. I was just taking some time off. I'll get back to you when I can. Yeah, and it's so hard for us as entrepreneurs to do that. Colin, I don't know whether you've ever done that, but you've got to educate your client base in their rights of access to you, particularly the big guys. Well, actually, the small guys too. The small guys, well, they'll torment you. They're like little minnows constantly biting at your feet. The big guys, like the big shark who wants to go along and take chomp off your leg. And you know what? It's in your client's interest that you're in a good state of health. It really is. It's in your client's interest. Yeah. So when you point it out to them, these sort of things in a polite way and everything like that, and maybe it's a face-to-face conversation or something like that, say, look, I'm there for you. Monday to Friday, I am there. And if it's an absolute disaster across the weekend, but don't go along and drive me to the nth degree about infinitesimal issues. Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see the reaction of some of them. I'd say, look, I don't do the same for you. I don't go along and drive you when I know it's you with your kids on the weekend or something like that. So please respect me on that side as well. And you know what? I find the majority of people are actually pretty good with that. They really are. But also say to them, if it is a disaster, I will be there for you. Yeah, so it's managing your customers and managing your suppliers, managing your partners, all that sort of stuff, and
and managing yourself.
managing
I don't,
yourself. But I
right?
think the biggest
We
thing
keep
though is
talking about all
managing
the other
yourself.
stuff, right? That's right. That's right. And that's what this show is all about. That's what we just touched the surface of it. And
Yeah,
there's a mental side, which we haven't really focused on here. But there's also a physical health side. And of course, there's a business side and there's a family side. And managing that equation, if done right, real wealth will come with real health as well. And I think that's what this show's been all about. And I think we barely touched the surface.
Oh,
Any last thoughts, Michael, before we wrap
yeah,
up? And I
sure.
wanted to talk a little bit about tomorrow's show as well.
Yeah, sure. I think that just my last thoughts are this is that if you're serious about this, then you also not only need to sort of learn to look after yourself and then the way you interact and all that sort of thing, but think of your team too. For instance, we actually have a well-being manager in my business, and we had a retreat. We took all the team away. We're looking next 6 months of planning, all that sort of stuff. And she went along and gave a talk for an hour and a bit on health, purely on health, on eating, on physical health. Like I run a very, very intense online business, and we're all sitting in front of computers all day. All right, so she talked about this, and it was a real eye opener because a lot of the team didn't know a lot of the things and the impact a lot of things they're doing, and so yeah, so we're serious about this, and so her goal is then to educate them. Every team member can make their own decisions, but to educate them, provide them the knowledge of better health, and that actually is really really good. And dare I say, my wife was the one who is a well-being manager. She's a trained operating theatre nurse. She's also a pastry chef, so I like to say to people, she can put you in hospital and then fix you up. So, but it's actually a real passion of hers. It's all about nutrition and health and all that sort of stuff, which is really useful and really seriously caring for people in your organization is important. Yeah. But anyway, that's the last I had to say on this topic, I think, Colin. So I'd love to hear what's going on with Startup Club. What's happening there?
Yes, and if you haven't already done so, go to startup.club, sign up for the email list. We have booked 8 speakers already for September, October on the show, and they're phenomenal entrepreneurs. Tomorrow, we are going to have a very special guest. Her name is Marcia Reese, and she is in the audience right now. Hello, Marcia. And the reason why we're excited about tomorrow is that it's all about figuring out the next big idea that uh, can make you rich, essentially, or give you wealth, make you money. The next invention. And in the book, Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, Marsha's been on our shows before, and we actually used a lot of her stories in the book when it comes to ideas are everywhere. And that was chapter 2. And just give me a minute here, but I'm going to give you one paragraph. One of our Startup Club members, Marsha Reese, once said, ideas come from an unfulfilled needs in our lives. In the 1970s, her daughter loved doing arts and crafts and enjoyed drawing with chalk, but Marcia didn't want her daughter using regular chalk because of the toxic ingredients, the things like that. So, not to mention, there was a creativity limit with having only one color option. You know, remember white chalk, thin chalks, and so Marcia decided to create something called sidewalk chalk. Well, I'm not going to get into detail today because we are going to do that tomorrow, and she'll tell the story on the show. But Sidewalk Chalk became very successful, and can begin to think about your own life, and ideas are everywhere. And begin to think, how can I take those ideas and turn them into a business, turn them into a startup venture? And that's what we're going to conquer tomorrow. This book, Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, interviewed over 200 people, and Marcia was one of those people. We took only the best interviews, about 50, and put those people in the book. And today it's one of our 12 awards. It's been number one in 13 categories on Amazon. And by the way, Michael, we just got an airport deal with Hudson's and WH Smith. They are now going to be carrying the paperback version, which comes out October 27th, in every airport in the United States. And that's coming out October 27th, the book. but the deal is starting September 1st with those two companies, and Hudson's is the largest book company in the airports in the United States. So much more to talk about, but we are out of time. And you've been listening to The Complete Entrepreneur every Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern. And you've been listening to it on the Start Scale Exit Repeat Serial Entrepreneur Secrets Revealed podcast with background noise from my dog. Hopefully, you haven't heard too much of my dog barking there. But it is a live show. We'd love to have you on stage. You can come to Clubhouse and join us on Startup Club and join us on stage every 5 o'clock every Thursday or 2 o'clock every Friday. We'll see you all next week. Oh, we
Look
got
forward to
Marsha on
seeing.
stage here. Sorry, we
Yeah,
got Marsha.
yeah.
Any
Look forward to
thoughts about
seeing you next week too. But
any thoughts about
Masha, sorry.
yes. Sorry, yeah, we're talking over each other. Any thoughts about tomorrow's show, Marsha? Want to give us a taste?
No, I'm excited to be with you all.
It's your wisdom and your knowledge and your stories that have inspired and helped so many people. So we're very excited to having you on.
Thank you very much. And I must tell you, your new book is fantastic, a very must have for every entrepreneur's desk.
I'd agree with you with that, Masha. Colin has done an amazing job encapsulating in Start Scale Exit Repeat the essence of what entrepreneurship really is. And I've been an entrepreneur since I was 16. I've always worked for myself. I'm now 58. And his book sits on my desk. Yeah, because it's almost like a manual, isn't it, Marsha? You can
It
look it up and you go, oh, there's a chapter on this. Oh, that's great.
Yes, and sets so many references to real live examples. I know I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I did a short stint working for the sixth largest toy company. And I had a bunch of MBAs that reported to me, and they were far more educated academically than I was, but none of them had that gut intuition of when to pull the trigger. So there's just so much that an entrepreneur has to have intuitively, and a resource like Collins is one of those things that really can help boost and fill in the short spots when you need a little extra advice.
Couldn't agree with you more. It really is. And congratulations, Colin, on getting that deal with Hudson's and WH Smith for the airport bookstores. I know many of us go to those bookstores and end up buying a book. And so they'll be able to see Start Scale Exit Repeat, and it's going to be amazing. Like the paperback version is coming out, which is fantastic. And if you haven't got the book, then go and get it. If you have read the book and you think, oh my gosh, it's amazing, let me tell you, go and buy a copy for a friend. Go and buy a copy for a friend and give it to them and tell them to do likewise. It's one of those books which has an incredible amount of wisdom in it, not just knowledge, but wisdom. And nowadays you can get knowledge anywhere, but it's very few places you can get wisdom from. And I would say that's the difference with this book. So, Colin, thank you for putting that together. I know it was a real labor of love. It's not a great big money earner for you or anything like that, but it's a labor of love. And it's something that you're passionate about this community with. And thank you for taking the time for putting together Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. It really is an amazing achievement. And I'm sure there's going to be, with any luck, there'll be a sequel as such, Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat 2, or a handbook or something like that, because once again, that'll become a part of my reading list, that's for sure.
All right, you guys are amazing. We'll see you all next week, and we'll see you tomorrow
Yeah,
on Friday at 2 o'clock Eastern to hear Marsha and learn about how we can take ideas and make money from them. Bye for now.
sounds like a great time. See you later, everyone. Take care.